care of the kids, cover household expenses, and it's rough. So they're working with the city's financial self-sufficiency program to try to get back on their feet. And they just
Where's my button?
I think
Oh no, the
needed a reliable mode of transport.
Sorry.
And welcome. I
Oh
forgot
my
to I
God.
forgot to put Jamie's master buttons and connect them to the computer. So she's like,
The mic was on when I said it.
so hey, welcome everybody. What
my
an
God.
abrupt start to the Pop Live stream. Happy Tuesday to you all. And hello to Brian, who is already in the chat rooms going on. He said, "Oh, Jamie." Anyways, hot off the successful virtual convention, Hawaii Alliance of Nonprofit Organizations, HANOCON this past week, we thought we'd go and have a deep dive and talk to the two who were a huge part in planning it and running it and putting it all together and get their thoughts as to what went well, how they did it, and hopefully give other nonprofits an idea in what to expect and look forward to if they are interested in doing a virtual convention. So virtual conference. So without further ado, let's please welcome to this show Lisa Maruyama and Laurie Nakamoto.
Yay!
We would have our confetti, but I forgot the buttons. So sorry, guys. Hi guys, welcome.
Hello, long time no see.
I know it feels like it's been
know-
ages.
I'm jonesing. When I don't see Jamie and Nolan for 2 days, I don't know. I just don't know what to do.
Oh,
So we were like joined in the hip for like 2.5 days. So.
I was tempted to mispronounce your name, Lisa, on purpose,
Oh
just
my
so we could
goodness.
stick with the theme of.
yes.
Just to be consistent.
Incorrect names. Incorrect names. And
Or yeah, just call me another name entirely. That would have been good.
Well, I don't know if you can hear. There might be an echo, and that's because Jamie has blasted the earphones because she
Oh,
can't hear.
should I make
But
it
mine
quiet?
is
No,
like
there's no
super
echo.
loud. Oh,
You
okay.
can hear?
Okay.
Here, adjust it for you.
I'm just really gonna be deaf after this, but that's
Adjust it
okay.
for you.
No. Jamie has difficulty hearing, so I want to make sure she can hear. But I'm so glad to have you guys on because we wanted to give this opportunity because most of our viewers are nonprofits themselves, and some of them might be interested in hearing kind of the behind the scenes of how you guys were able to put on a virtual convention or conference. This is your second one. Last year was the first time you did it. So I wanted to hear like kind of what things you learned from last year's and that you implemented in this year and all that. But first of all, before we even get into that, could you explain what HANOCON is for those who are unfamiliar with just, what goes on in HANOCON, what the purpose of it is, and how long you guys have been doing HANOCON?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So HANOCON is our branded, I guess, name for our annual conference of nonprofit stakeholders. And it usually attracts nonprofit staff, board members, volunteers, consultants, anybody who is funders, our government partners sometimes, anybody who is interested in the well-being of the nonprofit sector and the constituencies that we serve are interested in perhaps coming to this conference and networking and co-learning. And in the past, it's been, of course, in person.
Yeah.
And it's been in varying sizes over the years. Sometimes we've done like just a half day in-person conference or like an annual meeting / educational offering over lunch. And in later years, it's been kind of like a full-fledged conference. One day, it used to be at Pomaikai Ballrooms, which sadly is no longer. Is something that we lost in the pandemic, and so that makes us a little sad because Pomaikai was a great partner to us. But in the virtual sense, we converted it to a 2-day event, largely to try and spread across all the content not pack it into one day because it's so hard to consume, especially concurrent sessions, right? It's hard to consume all of that in the course of one day, so we expanded it to 2 days in the virtual format.
When you were
Laurie, you want to add anything?
No, that's good. You summarized that well.
when you guys were doing it in person, what did that look like as far as, yes, it was at Pomaikai Ballrooms, but what did the day kind of look like, the experience look like?
You mean in the physical format?
Yeah, when you did
Yeah.
when it was like the full day kind of thing.
Right, right. So, we had an exhibitor, kind of like a trade exhibit going on, trade exhibition going on, where those providers, vendors were there all day long, and you could, and I think you guys were exhibitors.
Yeah, you guys did it a few years.
Yeah.
Couple years. And so Pop Creative Media is an example of a type of exhibitor that was there to try and share resources with nonprofits around the types of things that would enhance their events or their operating environment. And then we would have usually like an opening keynote we'd have breakfast and a keynote speaker, and then people would kind of break out into breakout sessions that were concurrent. So you could usually choose between 2 or 3 sessions in that time track. And we had maybe one of those in the morning. Then we came all back together for an awards ceremony and an annual meeting and a luncheon content of some sort. Then break out into probably 2 more tracks of breakout sessions, and then maybe even an afternoon plenary. And then we used to have a reception with entertainment, and that was usually it. We would add little things here and there, gimmicks in the course of the day to make it fun. We'd have a stamp card. You have to get all the exhibitors stamping your card, etc. So kind of like old school forms of gamification to encourage interaction and networking, etc. And people loved just this idea of like seeing old friends. We had neighbor islanders coming in, and so it was a nice chance to get to know each other and find possible collaborative partners, etc. So
Yeah.
that was the one-day physical experience.
Those are really fun because, just getting to, I guess, create those relationships with all in the community. Everyone came in with a desire, energy and a desire to learn, but also to try new things or learn about new
Right.
things and create new opportunities and stuff. So it was a really awesome full day experience, even though we were just on the exhibitor side, just being able to have those conversations in between and the breaks and stuff, like you could definitely
Right.
feel and sense that. So
Yeah.
so when you guys last year when the pandemic hit and you decided to go virtual for it, what were some of the thoughts behind one, turning it virtual, and two, what were your expectations going into it? Or maybe some concerns going into it?
Why don't I let Laurie take that one?
Yeah, well, I know right off the bat, one of our concerns was that, would people actually attend virtually? And would it be as meaningful to attendees? Another concern was, would we get sponsorships? And would we get any exhibitors to take us up on a virtual platform exhibitor space? And we were pleasantly surprised with both that, yes, people did attend. In fact, we had our highest attendance ever
Wow.
last year virtually. And I think, some of that is because of just accessibility, right? We're able to bring in people from the neighbor islands who, in the past it had been kind of a cost constraint for them, right,
Yeah.
to come in person. So this way we were able to invite a lot more others and it's even on the mainland. And I think, Lisa, even out of the country, right? Didn't we have some attendees out of the country? Yeah, so accessibility was great, and we were pleasantly surprised that so many of our sponsors stepped up, even though it was virtual, and our exhibitors as well. And it was something new to them, right? The pandemic had it was just in its first year of the pandemic, and that concept was new to some, but they jumped right in, and it ended up being a good experience.
So what were some of the things? So now that it's been year two, and we had that first one, which ironically was also it was our first, jump into producing a virtual conference as well. So not only did you have a year of experience, we also had a year of experience too. So going into this year's conference, what were some things that you changed or learned from last year that you did differently, and was it an improvement, or how did it? Was there improvements or troubles that you saw this year that might be helpful for others to know about?
Well, one thing we did, and we kept the same production team, which was you guys, Pop, which we're happy about, and then we also kept the same app platform, Huva, which we used last year, and then we decided to use them again this year. So in that way, we didn't have too much of a learning curve because we had already been through both of those last year. But what we did change, I think, was we decided to take it a notch up, and we added another track. So last year we just had one track, so a session, only one session going on at any given time, and this year we did concurrent sessions. So that was a little bit of a challenge for us. I mean, it worked out in the end, but it was a little bit more work. There was a little bit more work involved with that.
Why did you decide to do that, to go from one track to multiple tracks? What was the benefit for you for that?
I'll jump in. I think we were worrying about Zoom fatigue. So last year there was some relative novelty around a virtual conference, right? And we had, because we had offered it in early October, and I think there were in Hawaii, there were maybe 2 major conferences that had happened virtually in the summer going into the fall. And so we weren't terribly, the market wasn't inundated with the product of virtual conferences yet, such that we knew that there might be some curiosity about consuming content this way. This year, we were, fast forward a year later, 18 months later in the pandemic, we were really concerned that people are just so tired of sitting in front of at their desks and consuming information this way. And so we were trying to make the experience richer, more stimulating. We were trying to intersperse it with also fun things, as well as, some of the more academic content, cerebral content. We wanted to give people breathers in between. So we were really trying to think about ways in which we could incentivize people's content coming back to actually do this again with us. The second track, right, just to make the second session in each track, making that more, just more offerings, right, for people to make choices. Yeah.
And you said it was a little challenging and such, but did you find in the end that was that it worked out well and that you'd want to do that again? Or what were some of the things that you learned from doing it this way and adding additional tracks and having concurrent sessions?
Yeah, I think we would be open to offering it again if we still continue to do virtual. Like Lisa said, it definitely adds more choice offerings for folks. So, and we did again invite organizations to purchase for their entire organization, which lowered the cost instead of individually. So because a lot of organizations, many of them attended from the same organization, they could split up, or if one was if one person was more in tune to a certain session, that they would just split up and divide and conquer that way. Similar to, in our physical conference at HANOCON, we had several breakout sessions going at the same time. So in that way, we tried to replicate that a little bit. And yes, we would be open to doing it. It was a little bit more work, a little bit more involved with planning, right? Because our second track was outside of, it was in Zoom, right? So we had to kind of split up our manpower as well, just to organize that. But yeah, I mean, just in general, virtual conferences versus in person, it just involved a whole different skill set, right? I mean, you have to think on a different level. It's a totally different ball game than an in-person conference, of things that you have to think about, different timelines, different planning schedules. Yeah, just very different.
And even though it was different, do you have a preference between the two, knowing having two having the experience of planning and running both ways? Do you have a preference?
I actually really miss people. I miss being able to hug friends and colleagues, but I actually think the virtual format is much more accessible, right? If we were able to bring the cost down of the overall conference because we weren't providing food, we're not paying a venue, et cetera, a venue like a ballroom. And we can share content really easily with our attendees, right? So they can grab links to presentations really easily. You can show screen in vMix, in the platform we were using with you, or in Zoom very easily. So collective learning, co-learning is much easier, I think, in the virtual format. So that I think is very appealing to me. The fact that we could see people from across the world coming into this community to co-learn gave me a lot of chicken skin. Just this idea that we're reaching far and wide, right? And it helps us to not be so Honolulu centric, which is what we typically tend to be when we're in a physical presence in Honolulu, right? And we're expecting people to come far and wide to actually bear the expensive cost to come and consume, right? So I really like it for that reason. But I do miss seeing people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and accessibility for attendees, but also accessibility to presenters. We were able to get presenters that we may not have been able to if it were in person, right? Just it's so much easier for them. The cost is less. So in that way, that was definitely a plus. The other things we gained were, gamification. We were able to add a lot of contests and games and fun prizes to our virtual experience for the attendees. And then also just the interactivity of in the chat while a session is going on, people are chatting about, throwing out resources or commenting on what they're hearing. And it was just so rich with an exchange of ideas that I think you can't quite get in an in-person event, because obviously you can't be talking to each other. Now, I mean, somebody did bring up, Whova, the app platform that we use, they do recommend you use it for in-person events as well. So if we do go back to in-person, that is an option as well, to keep using the app for interactivity. But, I don't know. I'm just thinking it might be a little rude when you're listening to a presenter and then you're on your phone, right? Yeah. Chatting on your phone while the presenter is standing in front of you. So, yeah.
And Brian, to add to what you're saying, Brian said, I really enjoyed virtual both years. It almost felt like even the networking was a bit more meaningful. I think going to an in-person event would be challenging for him, is what he's saying. So. Yeah,
we've heard that, Nolan, from other attendees who, said that they are less likely to walk across a ballroom to actually, introduce themselves to a new person, like form a contact, and they're more likely to reach out virtually and say, hey, can we connect offline? I know your mission and my mission would be very complimentary? Could we have coffee or something later, right? So
Yeah.
so we've heard that from attendees that we've somehow brought down some kind of social barrier by facilitating this kind of these affinity groups in our conference platform, et cetera. And then I wanted to make another point actually that Lynn, you had given me feedback after last year's virtual conference where as a exhibitor in the physical experience, you said sometimes when people walk by your table, they're waiting in line to talk to you.
Yeah.
And then because you're only really seeing some of our conference attendees at the breaks, then they're being ushered back into the breakout sessions or into the plenary. And you don't even have a sense of who that person was who was trying to talk to you. Like they didn't sign in or anything. Whereas in the virtual land, people can sign up with you in advance and you can actually talk to all of them in one fell swoop, like at one time. So it's easier to just make sure you're engaging with as many people as possible in the virtual format. So do you have anything to add to that yourself as an exhibitor of how that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we could use Jamie as an example, socially. when
Super awkward.
When we were in person, she like wouldn't talk to anybody.
I think I hid under the table, literally.
Or if I was in the bathroom, she'd be like, "Oh,
yeah.
Nolan will be back."
I didn't want him to go to the bathroom at all.
But switch sides, and in the virtual platform this year, she's like so active in all of the chats and all of the discussions and stuff. And she's like telling me like, "Hey, don't forget to post a selfie and comment back on this stuff." And I was like, "Geez, who are you?"
Right.
So
right.
yeah.
So there's something for everybody, right, in this virtual format for sure.
Lisa, you had mentioned that you're concerned about, this year, the second year, having Zoom fatigue and such, and that's what prompted you to make some changes. Did you notice from the attendees or the registrations that there was a drop from last year, or what was the result of this year?
No, I mean, Laurie, correct me if I'm wrong, but we had more attendees than last year, correct?
Yeah, a little more than last year even.
Yeah.
So we were pleasantly surprised that,
And this is definitely virtual event culture, but in the physical format, we used to really kind of poo-poo anybody who registered late, right? Because when the conference has started, it's very hard. We have limited manpower and women power, so it's hard to register people while we're delivering a conference. But in the virtual world, we actually, and this got more this year, is people were actually registering not just on Thursday when the conference commenced and all day Thursday, but Friday. People were, even without us offering a 1 day package, we didn't offer. It was a 2-day or all or nothing. Basically, right? Kind of pricing. People were still registering as late as Friday just to consume Friday. But that's the other beauty of virtual conferencing is if you pay for the registration fee, you get all the recordings afterward, right? So you can consume it later if you had some meeting conflicts in the Thursday or the Friday of the conference. You can always consume it after. You can't do that in the physical sense, right? I mean, we do have Olelo usually filming some of the plenaries for us, but not all, right? So you could capture it later on those public access channels, but really here in the virtual format, it's easier to consume, I think, after the fact. So,
and the
anyway,
flexibility.
Go ahead, Laurie.
No, that's a good point, Lisa, about flexibility of registration, because in in-person events, you require the attendees to register early because you need to get the food count into the venue by, 2 weeks prior or whatever it is, right? So you have a deadline. And after that date, it's hard to add people, right? So that's the other constraint with a in-person event versus virtual.
And good the conference packets, the programs that we used to print physically and put on everybody's table, right? So numbers matter really early on, and we used to get completely consumed by registration numbers for those reasons. And in the virtual context, we're not so hung up on numbers, right? Because we can deliver this no matter what. And I want to qualify that HANO is a different animal altogether, in that we ourselves are an intermediary organization that, these types of conferences are things that we put on. It fits nicely in our mission. And we understand that for other nonprofits, they're not necessarily always holding educational conferences so much as they are maybe a dinner, right? Like, or some kind of auction or some kind of fun thing, a fundraiser. So the context is slightly different. So just for people to note the differences in the types of events that we might put on versus our members. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, and as far as you mentioned Whova as the platform that you use, the app, can you explain to those who are unfamiliar with what Whova is, or what the purpose of an app in general is? Like, some would just have assumed you guys just did it all on a Zoom call, but this was a different than that, right?
Yeah, Whova, that platform allows, it takes you from registration all the way through evaluation to the end of the conference. So it just is a whole platform where attendees can interact with others. There's a community board where you can message other attendees or organizers. The organizers can also push out announcements over the Whova app. And, you can it's a mobile, you can download it on your mobile device or on the web as well. You have two options. Like I said, the gamification offerings that they have on the app as well is part of it. And then you can visit the sponsor centers and the exhibitor centers via the app. There's virtual groups you can set up, in meetings that attendees set up as well with each other. Like, actually, you guys, Jamie and Nolan, set up a behind the scenes meetup during lunch one day so that everyone could see the whole setup and the studio where we all were.
Which
So
Brian
that was
RSVP'd for and no-showed, by the way.
I know.
Yeah,
where did that Brian go?
But yeah, so it just offers a whole nother level versus just, clicking on a Zoom link and watching a webinar.
Can I also jump in to toot your horn, Jamie and Nolan? Because, certainly I think what's really is a value add, I think, to the production of HANOCON is this idea that you, as collaborative partners, Pop Creative Media, really helped to make it, like, in essence, a show, right? Like, it isn't just these discrete Zoom links and offerings. It was tied together thematically. You guys helped us. It really is just a produced show. Like, I often think about the fact that, like, I used to be a big fan of the Today Show. I'd watch it every morning while I was getting ready, right? 7 to 9 or 7 to 10 now, a.m. every morning. It's produced. It's a daily produced show with a kind of like a war room of producers, like, like rows and rows of people actually producing that show every day. And Jamie does this by herself, produces a 2-day, like 8-hour show for HANO with Nolan as our talent, right? But like Jamie does this alone, lighting and sound and, the visual effects, and running one piece into the other seamlessly. And I can't emphasize enough how much of an enhancement that is to the way people can consume the information we want to share, to make it easy on the eyes and entertaining and, flowing smoothly, etc. So those things, those kinds of elements are really essential, I think, enhancing kind of an event deliverable. So thank you.
Yes,
Thank
totally.
you for everything you bring to the table.
I echo Lisa's comments totally. We got a few evaluations back from the attendees already, and most of it is really, really positive about the virtual format, and they would attend again virtually, and this was the best virtual conference they've ever been to. We saw several of those comments. And then there were several Jamie and Nolan comments like, what was the best part about it? And somebody put Nolan. So,
Yeah.
seriously, it was like a one-line answer, Nolan.
Was that you, Brian? Did you
That was not Brian.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So thank you. I mean, having a production team and choosing one it's certainly a huge part of the process of doing a virtual event, and we're so glad we chose you guys and that we did it. I mean, last year you probably wanted to like smash us in the head because we were behaving badly and we weren't used to all the the deadlines that we had to abide by those rules, and we weren't following them very well. What was choking our neck.
Is interesting. Laurie brings up a good point. It was such a interesting, awkward marriage of two cultures, right? We know our stuff around conference planning and in the physical sense, right? So we had our own preconceived ideas of deadlines and things that we needed to meet. And you guys come from a completely different universe and world of your own production deadlines that we had no sense of, like no sensibilities around the production side, the technology, what it takes for Jamie to like put everybody in boxes in this nice, even way so it looks aesthetically pleasing. Like we had no sensibilities about that. And so last year, I will say it was painful because the two cultures had to merge in order to create this child together, right? This new child, this new product. And I will say, I mean, maybe you could give us feedback. Were we better behaved this year with our deadlines? Like, I think we finally had a better sense of what goes on your side in order to adhere to your deadlines. Because we were just like, oh, sorry, we missed that deadline. We'll get back to you in a week, right? And I'm sure you're going to strangle us. But anyway, give us feedback on how you perceived us this year. Like, were we better at this or worse? I know that I made unnecessary sounds in the studio. I know I still did that.
So did I.
Oh my God. Wait. That is so funny. Sorry. That's right. Somebody mentioned when the question was on the survey, what was the best part about the conference? Somebody said, something, laughing, potato chips. I mean, yeah, seriously, they brought up potato chips.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. That's the best part.
Yeah.
Okay, come on. That's really potato chips after everything we did. Potato chips.
Oh, that's funny.
Never mind decolonizing wealth and true cost.
Yeah.
No, it was potato chips. Okay.
That's
The
what they
memorable
remember.
moments.
It's
was
sort of like
memorable.
when you buy a very expensive like Christmas present or something for your child,
Yeah.
and you like gave a lot of thought to it, and it took you a while to assemble it, and then this child wants like a toilet paper roll or something.
Yeah.
With that is.
Or they're playing with the wrapping. You're
Yeah.
like, that's the box. What about the stuff that was in the box?
Right.
Yes.
Well, I'll let Jamie answer because I have my answer, but she had more direct connection with.
Oh, you guys are way better this year.
You're more
But
compliant.
I think it was also because we didn't understand what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
So we really had to get a better feel of that too. And I think the main thing was like the PowerPoint thing, like just realizing what we need and then like
Yeah.
how to make it
Yeah.
possible
Right.
for the speakers to do just the minimum thing. So because all we
Yeah.
really needed was the format, the layout of it. So once
Right,
we figured out
right.
like how to minimize what we need so that you guys are able to provide it, it's way easier.
And I think
Well, and
we.
even at that, we were late. Well, not us. Not us. I don't want to throw them under the bus, but the
Well,
presenters.
here you go. The bus just drove by and Laurie threw him right under there. Like, let's try and pick him up off the streets.
Well, we
and-
can't. As much as we want to control what they do, we
Yeah.
can't, right? So we can just beg and beg and beg
Yeah.
and just cross our
Well,
fingers, right?
And we're not academia, but we're close to it, right? In the kind of the content that we do, and the speakers that we bring in, sometimes they don't have their PowerPoint or their presentation ready, or they do, but it's like intellectual property, so they're not gonna release it out into the wild, weeks in advance.
Yeah.
And so there's a culture that we're trying to honor in the way we engage our speakers. And so, but it was good because for anybody out there listening, we had to work that out with each other in terms of our cultures, right? And our constituents and the expectations of the people who are going to participate and like co-create the conference content with us, right? Yeah.
And I'll say in your defense of last year, we also didn't do a good job of presenting you an organized way of getting what we needed.
Yeah.
So what also
we didn't know what we were doing either.
Yeah, everyone was. Yeah.
So we tried to do
it was
this.
new for everyone.
Yeah. So we tried this year to improve our communication so that it's easier for you to know this is what's needed. These are the timelines and stuff. So I think together as a team, we just all stepped up based on our experiences and learning and stuff. But yeah, I agree with Jamie. And the funny thing is as much as you joke about how you're difficult to work with last year, I remember at the end of it going, I really hope we do this again next year because it was so fun and really rewarding. So it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I hope they don't call us back. Like, when you called us, we were like, yes, thank God, this will be great. And it was even more enjoyable than the year before, just because we knew what to expect. There's a little less of that scary, like, oh my gosh, what are we doing?
And I think the potato chip thing, like the content is so good, but I think it's because everything's virtual, like those moments where it's funny and people can see you guys laughing. It makes it feel more personable.
Well, and just know the potato chips are given. The potato chips come with every HANOCON planning. I am never going to give up the potato chips. So that's my
neither
stress.
am I.
Yeah.
Because I this year was the one who opened the bag of potato chips.
Well, and remember, Nolan, it's not just that you and I are gluten free, but I did specifically look for a can of chips instead of a bag of chips, so that it would be harder to bust open my chips.
And then here I come, and I brought my own bag, and it was like crinkle, 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 and all I saw was those glaring eyes from Laurie going like, you. Like almost like et tu Caesar or et tu Brutus.
Well, and you know what's so funny is yesterday, because we had staff and a HANOCON planning team debrief, and I said to Jennifer Cornish-Creed, JWC, I said, I think Nolan's being a diva about this whole sound of the potato chips thing, because I don't think that I made that much noise last year opening my bag of potato chips. And JWC, who never likes to offend and never, she's so diplomatic, she said, oh, we could hear your potato chip. And I'm like, are you sure? And she said, yeah, no, Nolan wasn't making it up. We could all
Redemption. I have been redeemed.
But then I have to ask people in the Zoom session that I was moderating this time when Nolan got caught red-handed opening his potato. I have to ask people, did you hear his potato chip bag? Because I didn't even know what was going on. I was so focused. And I only saw Laurie and Jamie giving you stink eye, Nolan. I was like, in the studio. I just saw them glaring at you.
In my defense, I was further away from you than you were to me when you opened.
My gosh.
But before our viewers are like, what the heck are they talking about? I want to get back to some useful information. So for people who are watching this and do have an idea that they want to look into creating a similar event. So maybe they do have a conference that they are trying to plan out, and virtual is an option for them. What are some things that you would want them to know as far as here are key things for you to know so that you can have a successful one, versus because a lot of them are going into it blindly and they are kind of in the position you guys were last year. Here you are 2 years removed, doing your second one. What are some key things that would really resonate and help those planning right now?
I think a major consideration that, is important are the costs involved, right? So obviously for an in-person event, the hard costs are there, the rental of a facility, the food is a huge one, the food. But, you know, for virtual, there are costs that people need to be aware of. You know, production, right? Production costs, and if there's a rental studio space rental fee involved, and thankfully we're so grateful to Happiness U, Alice Enoy and Happiness U for sponsoring us this year, and she let us use her space for free, so we're so grateful for her. But also captioning, right? Closed captioning costs, we had to take that into consideration. The Whova platform or any other app platform that you use, there's a cost involved. Zoom, we did decide to hire a Zoom expert, quote unquote expert, to help us run the Zoom events. So yeah, there are some costs. Probably not as much as there would be in an in-person, but just different.
That's interesting, because I think that would be the next question people would have, which would be, yes, we understand they're different costs, but some would assume it would cost more to do virtual, just because it's like got all these technical things, and you would assume, like, you know, the cost of production would be higher. But you're saying they're either similar or could be less, is from your experience?
You know, things like food and beverage are variable costs, right? So the more people you have, the higher the cost, right? Things like production, all the tech for virtual is flat, right? These are fixed costs that you can spread across, whether it's 10 people coming or 300 people coming, right? So that's what makes it makes it a little dicey in the physical side, the physical context, because we're always trying to manage our variable costs that are hinged to people.
Yeah.
You know, right? And those are high ticket items. Food and beverage is the biggest expense on your budget usually.
And then of course there's, like Lisa was mentioning before, the printing costs, right? Costs of printing the program, of designing the program. We
graphic design,
graphic designer, lay. We
Right.
ordered a lot of lay in the past, right? For all the presenters, all the board members, all, you know, So those are some of the costs that go away with a virtual.
And the favors, you know, like we always tried to have a conference bag with some goodies in it, right? And while a lot of it was donated by our sponsors, so we're very appreciative of that, there were some, we liked to put in a little something into the bag from HANO. And so we thought about that last year when we were going to virtual. We were like, should we mail little goodies to people? You know, some of our colleagues in the community have thought about doing like a lunch discount thing where people could have lunch or dinner delivered to them. And I know that a number of nonprofits have tried experimenting with that model. And we just decided, you know, it's a hard one because we're statewide, and we wanted to make sure that everybody was able to get something or access the service. And so we just decided to forego those types of things. It just seemed logistically too hard for us to do statewide. But those would have been costs, right? Associated costs related to this particular model. What we did to enhance, and this was kind of at your urging too, is we ordered quality mics for all of our presenters. And if we're going to just all be in kind of these boxes virtually, we might as well enhance the things that we can control, right? So quality visuals, quality sound, things like that, that would enhance the viewer's experience of the content. So we invested in those types of things instead.
Aside from cost, what other things would you suggest planners look into or be prepared for?
Well, yeah, I think just like I said before, you know, it's just a whole different animal, planning a virtual conference versus an in-person. So I think, you know, you just need to prepare your staff for a really a different learning curve that's involved. So it is different, and definitely maybe get some tips, or ask different folks who've been through it, through the experience, for tips and suggestions. That would be, I think, something that I would suggest. And then just, weigh the pros and cons, because there are differences to both, like we talked about, and there are pros and cons to both, and you give up some to do the other. For example, for virtually, we decided to give up the whole awardee
Right.
luncheon, part of it. That was a huge part of our in-person HANOCONs in the past, right? And we just felt like we wouldn't be doing it justice to do it virtually, so we decided not to do that. So yeah, I mean, obviously networking, you lose some of that in-person networking, just, going to the bathroom and chatting with someone who you haven't seen for a whole year, or, it's those coffee conversations that you kind of miss out on. So I would just suggest that that organizations take a look at the big picture, and see what they're willing to give up and what they're not.
Mm-hmm. And pricing is a very sensitive strategy to be thinking about too, vis-a-vis your so-called competitors that are offering similar conference products in the community. You just kind of want to be sensitive and mindful of competitive pricing for the value. And I think for us, year one, year two, we still didn't really understand how to price it. Like, what's the value? Are people going to come for this? Are they going to buy it? So it's just trial and error, being very, very sensitive to those issues. And then what's going on in the economy too. And what made it hard for us is everybody's waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? In this pandemic. Is there another variant? Is there another, crisis that's coming? Are we sheltering? Are we, closing down as a state? I mean, there were all of these impending possible threats that would impact people's pockets, people's appetites to consume this. Like, if the world's coming to an end, are you going to go to a HANOCON? And we think that's why we saw some last minute registrations. We literally know that we thought that people were literally waiting to the last minute to see, is there going to be some kind of disaster that I need to be tending to in my office or in the economy, and such that I shouldn't register for HANOCON to probably the morning of, right? So we saw a little bit of that kind of behavior, and rightfully so. I think a lot of people are on edge right now. And so it's been interesting to try and plan for these types, like packaging, bundling, pricing things in this time period. And that's been, I would say, very challenging for us.
What about sponsors and exhibitors? Did you see that you saw a drop in sponsorship, or have difficulty in getting sponsors to see the value in supporting a virtual conference versus an in-person conference?
Yeah, Laurie's shaking her head. No,
not at all.
Yeah, we have some very, very supportive and loyal sponsor partners who just didn't blink an eye. So we're very appreciative of those partnerships. Yeah.
Was it mainly because they were just loyal, or did they also see there was a value in still supporting or sponsoring, especially after the second year, where they obviously came back after that first year experience? Did any of them give you any feedback?
Laurie, do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, many of them, most of them, and we even got new ones that came this second year versus the first year. So yes, they definitely saw value, and decided to support us. I think for both reasons, because they're loyal to HANO, but also because they did see value in the virtual space.
I think it's interesting because when you think about banner ads and those types of things that are better suited on an online platform, we were able to actually give more visibility to our sponsors than if we had like a physical sign at the entrance of Komaikai Ballroom, or we're doing a slide loop in the main ballroom. People, are not necessarily getting as much exposure. Sponsors are not getting that much exposure in the physical sense as they are when it's your logos popping up regularly in the banner loop on Huva, or anyway, or we were able to pivot for like our title sponsors to give them more visibility in terms of an interview or film, some kind of short segment in which they could talk about their mission and their goals, etc. So in some ways, it was a nice pivot, an easy pivot. The other thing too, I think for some sponsors is they want to support the nonprofit community, especially in these times. And so it was even more important, I think, to come out and support a vehicle like HANO, where the resources given to HANO actually result in resources going out to the nonprofit community by extension, right? So I think for some sponsors, they appreciated that opportunity to provide that kind of support.
I'm glad you're able to say that, because I think that's one of the most common questions I get from whenever I meet with new clients that are considering or even just trying to learn more about virtual events. Is their first assumption is that they're just not going to get any sponsorships because they think that sponsors just don't have, like, the economy is not healthy enough for people to spend money. And also they are concerned that the visibility or the return of investment just isn't as much as an in-person event. But the way you described it, it kind of, to Brian made a great comment that kind of going back to your point of having more opportunities for the sponsors to get interaction and visibility. Brian earlier said that the HANOCON exhibitors, he actually watched all of their videos, which were wonderful. And at first he was just trying to get points for watching the videos, and normally would swing by and grab a pen and move on from the in-person things. But he actually enjoyed the exhibitor space, which, to have an attendee say that, that's pretty huge for, a sponsor to hear that kind of feedback.
Yeah.
Right?
We're going to, Brian, please let Brian know we're tracking him down for the testimonial to encourage the value add for exhibitors and sponsors in the future if we do this in this format. But similarly, Brian brings up a good point. Not all exhibitors in the physical sense want to schlep down their TV monitor and their to show their video, right? Their marketing thing. And it's so easy to do it in this format, right? And for people just to click and look at it, right? Rather than physically standing at the table and watching something, right?
Yeah, and
So
for us,
point,
we had a sponsor exhibitor, virtual exhibitor booth, and just knowing that if somebody happens to visit it and is interested in us, that they easily can just click on our link and go to our website and they can get all the information they want there, versus in person. They're excited, but 4 hours later when they get home, they've forgotten about you and they're not going to go look you up, right?
And the in-person when there's no audio.
Oh yeah, for the videos, you can't.
So they're just watching the visual of it.
Yeah, you're just watching.
True.
And, and sometimes I'm like, video, coffee, bathroom. How am I utilizing my time in between, at the break? So this is, you're doing it on your own time. You're managing how you consume this information, and I kind of love that too. Yeah.
Is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you would want somebody else in the nonprofit world to understand or know about, either your experiences or what you think could be helpful to them in regards to events, whether it be in person or virtual, anything?
Laurie?
I think the last thing that I would want to say is, we had toyed with the idea this year of attempting a hybrid event. Yeah. But after much consideration, we decided that that probably wouldn't be the best idea. And after talking with other people about that, I think we made the right decision, because I think there's a lot of challenges involved with attempting a hybrid event. It's pretty much like you're, taking on two separate events. So it's like double the work. And, just technically and AV wise and all of that, I think there are challenges involved. So I'm glad we decided not to go that route.
Jamie is too.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would, add that, if certainly for those of people out there who are considering working with a company like Pop Creative Media, it is about sitting down to pencil out each of for your benefit, Jamie and Nolan, the nonprofit should pencil out purpose of the event, right? Like the tone, the tenor, the culture of the event, right? Like what feel are you going for with your event? What is your constituency going to look like? Who would potentially be attending? Because I think it helps you guys figure out how to brand it, how to shape it, the music you choose, all of that matters in terms of the overall branding. And what I think is interesting about HANOCON is it's this blend of both very cerebral, kind of very important information that nonprofit stakeholders need to get in order to do their business, meet their missions well, interspersed with some lighthearted, kind of cajoling and jokes and affinity groups and hoova, photos of cats and right. So like it's this nice blend, but it kind of is a nice branding for like Nolan and Jamie, you've helped us to kind of achieve that brand for HANOCON. So what I'm trying to say is branding, I think, is important for the event and how it will translate in the virtual world. Yeah.
I'm so glad that you are happy and you feel that we have helped you with your branding, because I remember the very first meeting we had so many years ago, and that was one of your focuses was getting the branding right. And right. We've spent many meetings with each other to get there. So to see it come to fruition is pretty rewarding. And
I do want to thank people like Brian, though, our members. Brian, for those of you, Brian's this nameless, faceless person, but it's Brian Talisayan, who's the executive director of Mental Health America. And people like Brian and Vaughn and some others that have been our HANOCON cheerleaders really also helped to create that culture and that community for us around HANOCON, just being our champions. And we couldn't have established that brand without organizations and people like them. So thanks so much to Brian, if he's still watching.
Oh, I'm sure he is. Brian's our one viewer. We also got to give a shout out to Anthony. Don't call me AJ unless you're my good friend Arce, who is also on here in the chat.
Oh, my goodness. We're going to see Anthony soon at the staff meeting. Yes. That's funny. Nolan's asking me, Anthony, why can't we call him AJ? Like, I don't know. Only those people can call him AJ.
We're not at that level yet. Well, you guys, before I go, Jamie, is there anything that you want to ask or say? Okay. I know you have your staff meeting coming up right now, so I want to let you guys go, but I want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this. It's not only helpful for those who are watching, but it's helpful for us. For those watching, this is the first time we're actually talking to them post
event.
Since
Friday.
So these questions are like legit. These weren't like, okay, I'm going to ask you guys this and you say this. Like, and if their response was going to be negative, like it was going to be negative. Like we weren't expecting.
Jamie has the power to edit us out, though, if it was negative. So,
but this is live. We can't edit it out.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Oh, and Rochelle is watching too. Rochelle says mahalo for the insight.
Hi, Rochelle. Congratulations.
And Brian says,
Chung? Is it Rochelle Chung or Rochelle Chang?
Rochelle Chung Chang Chung. Who knows? No. All Rochelle's. All Rochelle's. We appreciate you.
No, it's Chang. It's Chang.
Next year, who knows what it'll be, right?
Oh my goodness.
Brian said, this was great. Thank you all. Always learn from these lives. It's exciting when it's something that he actually got to live through. So we're excited that you lived through it as well, Brian.
Yeah.
But before we let you go, is there anything that you would want to share, like ways people can connect with HANO if they are interested in learning more about the organization, or if you have any upcoming events or things that you'd want the public to know?
Yeah, I mean, we're happy to answer any questions from any nonprofits who just want to learn more about this kind of event planning this way. Happy to. And I don't know if you have the ability to post our website or our
It's
phone
gonna go
numbers.
right over your face, so I'm gonna put it up after.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. But yeah, if you can provide that, if you go to our website, all our contact information is all there. If you want to call us or
Oh,
email.
that's awesome. Thanks for offering that.
Yeah. And thank you, you guys. You guys were amazing.
Thank you so much. So awesome. Thank you.
Well, we thank you for trusting us, and I mean it when I say it, that we really looked forward to doing this, because as much work as it is, like we've all gone over it, it's some of the most fun but also the most rewarding stuff that we do all year. So, and it's with the type of people, not just you, but the attendees as well, that just are the type of people we want to be around, because the nonprofit sector is just such an amazing collection of individuals and organizations. So it's been really our pleasure, for sure.
Oh, good. I couldn't agree more. Nonprofit sector rocks.
I wore this shirt because we talk about nonprofits being unicorns, and I thought, oh, a unicorn shirt. But if you look at it, it's totally not a good one, because it says it's these two dinosaurs.
It's backward. I can't read it.
Oh.
Yeah, what does it say?
It says, "Did you just eat the last unicorn?" And he goes, "No, but look." So there's the unicorn.
It's the worst shirt.
It's terrible.
It's
How
the
dare.
worst shirt.
I thought I was wearing a unicorn shirt, and then I realized it's like the opposite of a unicorn shirt. So sorry, guys.
Nolan.
I know. He could have just not said anything, and nobody would know.
I gotta be authentic.
Oh,
All right. With that being said, I'll send you off to your meeting. Say hello to the HANO gang, and we love you.
Thank you.
Thanks, you
Love you.
guys.
Love you guys too.
Love you.
Take care.
Oh no, I cut off her goodbye.
Jamie loves to cut people off as they're in the middle of
I
saying
don't.
goodbye. So all throughout all of our productions, people are like, yes, and I just saw, and then that's just like, oh, why would you cut them off mid-sentence? But for those of you who do want to go and check out HANO, that is their website, HANO, HANO hawaii.org. An amazing organization full of great resources too. So even if you don't necessarily want to contact them, but just want to get more information on support for your nonprofit, or even if you're thinking of starting a nonprofit, tons of great resources. And that's, I would say, the first place to start if you're looking into the nonprofit world here in Hawaii. That does it for today's episode. This was a lot of fun. We should have them on,
I know,
even if we're not talking about.
They're way too busy. They're way too busy.
But maybe
Lisa's like, no.
maybe we should just have more guests, anyways. But thank you so much to all of you who joined us as well. We had some great comments in the chats. Brian and Anthony and Rochelle. And if I'm missing anyone else, but thank you so much for joining us and participating in the chat. It always makes it more fun for us when we have people chatting, because it just gives us something else to hear or see than our own voices, which we've heard our own voices for far too long. But I hope you guys got some great info and insight into virtual conferences. That's like straight from, I don't want to call them horses, but that's straight from the horse's
The
mouth.
unicorn.
That's straight from the unicorn's mouth. And I thought that'd be so much more helpful, because we could say things, but it would just be us guessing as far as that goes.
We don't know anything about that stuff.
Yeah. So for them to give us their honest first person insight was super helpful. And it helped us too. Like I said, we only heard this from them today. I was nervous when I was asking the questions, because I didn't know if they had less or more success this year. And there could have been a good chance that they had this year we saw a drop in attendees and stuff, but I'm so relieved to hear that they had an increase. And even with the sponsors, I didn't know if they had more sponsors this year or not. And I was concerned that, because that is a good question. Like most clients or potential clients, when they ask me that, like, I can't confidently say, oh no, you guys will be fine. Like you're going to get the same amount of sponsors or it'll be easy. I don't know that. I haven't personally spoken to sponsors, but these guys have, and that's pretty encouraging to hear that sponsors are happy with this platform. All right. Any thoughts, anything that you saw or heard from that conversation that was kind of interesting to you?
My ear was really sore.
And that's only because, not because of the voices. It's because of the earbuds she's using. Her ears are not
My ears
ergonomic.
My ear pukas are really small, so when I smile, earbuds fall out. So I had to hold it in the whole time, and because I was laughing so much, it was squeezing the earbud. So it's still sore. I gotta ice my ear.
Well, we're gonna go ice Jamie's ear, and we hope the rest of you have a great rest of your day and week.
Why do I say these things? Okay.
We'll see you next week, and hopefully I'll have the buttons plugged in so that we can have the proper transitions. But if this doesn't work and we're awkwardly staring at you and you hear Jamie talking, just know it's because I forgot to plug in the buttons, okay? We'll see you next week. Bye.